When Jacob Hand first lit the wicks in Montauk Point Lighthouse in 1797, he lit a beacon that would help steer a new nation. Montauk Lighthouse lit the route of safe passage for thousands of immigrant ships and cargo vessels arriving in New York. It became a symbol of political freedom and economic opportunity. Standing proud as it has for over 2 centuries, Montauk Point Lighthouse is the oldest lighthouse in New York State and the 4th oldest in continuous operation in the United States. It draws visitors from around the world to share in the rugged beauty of Montauk and learn about its history. Montauk Point has the unique distinction of being a promontory that can be seen for miles at sea. Long before the lighthouse was built, Native Americans lit fires at Montauk to guide their canoes. When the British occupied Long Island during the Revolutionary War, they too built single fires to guide their Royal Navy patrolling the area. The idea to build a lighthouse at Montauk Point coalesced soon after the Revolutionary War. The fledgling United States was in desperate need of funds after the costly war. Statesmen and businessmen alike knew that foreign trade was the key to economic recovery. To stimulate trade with Europe, Congress passed the Aids to Navigation Act in 1789, a bill that would fund lighthouse construction at key points along the coast. To help build its prominence as a leading trade port, the New York Chamber of Commerce asked their congressional delegation to submit a bill to Congress for construction of a lighthouse at Montauk Point. In April of 1792, the bill was approved by President George Washington. To survey the point and find a suitable spot for the lighthouse, Ezra Lomadu, a lawyer and statesman from nearby Southold, was hired. He selected Turtle Hill, the highest spot on the point, to erect the lighthouse. This hill, like all of Montauk, was owned by a group of East Hampton citizens known as proprietors, who used it for summer grazing of cattle. After a long negotiation regarding restricted use of the property, the proprietors agreed to sell 13 acres to the federal government for $250. With the location for the lighthouse secured, the Treasury Department solicited bids for its construction. Of only 4 bids submitted, the lowest was for $22,300 by John McComb, who was also the only bidder with experience building a lighthouse, having recently finished the Cape Henry Lighthouse in Virginia. When the Treasury Department accepted McComb's bid, the daunting task of actually building the lighthouse in a remote, isolated location began. McComb hired about 50 masons, carpenters, and laborers, housed and fed them at the point, and with the arrival of stone from Connecticut by boat, began construction in June of 1796. Amazingly, a mere 5 months later, the tower was completed. The light was first lit in the spring of 1797. The Port of New York now had its landfall lighthouse, enabling the safe arrival of ships from Europe. The first keeper of the lighthouse was Jacob Hand, a resident of East Hampton. He held the position for 16 years. Life for the keepers and their families was at times very harsh. The nearest village, East Hampton, was 20 miles away, forcing lighthouse residents to be self-sufficient. The keeper and his family had to endure strong winter gales that pounded the shore and shook every building. With summer came the proprietor's cattle and sheep that far outnumbered humans. The keeper's children had to rely on each other and Montauk's natural resources for amusement. James G. Scott was keeper for 25 years, from 1885 to 1910, longer than any other keeper. He and his wife had 5 children while living at the lighthouse. Sadly, 3 of their children died of sickness and a 4th drowned while living at the lighthouse. Life was not easy for the early keepers. Strength of character, moral integrity, and independence were all qualities that made good lighthouse keepers. Just like numerous keepers that came and went through the lighthouse, so did government agencies that administered the lighthouse. In the early 1800s, the Treasury Department's lighthouse establishment ran the lighthouse, followed by the Lighthouse Board in 1852. In 1910, the Commerce Department's Lighthouse Service assumed responsibility. In 1939, the Coast Guard took control until 1996, when the lighthouse was given to the Montauk Historical Society, the first non-government entity to own it. Under the various supervisory agencies, keepers and their assistants were appointed to maintain the lighthouse, and most importantly, keep a clean, bright light burning. Trimming wicks, cleaning the lens, refueling, and winding the turning mechanism all had to be carried out throughout the night. A bright, clear light was fundamental to the lighthouse's effectiveness at signaling passing ships. Montauk Point's first light was simply a group of 8 lamps. In 1806, Josiah Hand installed a lamp of his own design with 32 wicks. The next light, an Argand, was the first to utilize hollow wicks for a much brighter and cleaner burning light. In 1857, the largest light ever put in a lighthouse was installed. It was a first-order Fresnel lens towering 12 feet high, utilizing a complex system of prisms to focus the beam for 24 miles. Montauk was one of 3 first-order lighthouses established by the Lighthouse Board to mark the shore of Long Island. In 1903, a 3.5-order bivalve was installed. Though smaller than the first order, it was slightly more powerful. In 1987, the light was automated with the installation of 2 rotating DCB airport lights. 2001 saw the installation of a Vega VRB-25 low-voltage marine beacon. This lamp automatically replaces its own burnt-out bulbs for a period of up to 6 years. Imagine how the first keepers who spent the entire night tending the light would feel about today's modern lamp. As shocked as early keepers would have been at the technological advancements at the lighthouse today, they wouldn't be surprised to see how much land had been eroded over the years. The original survey for the lighthouse positioned the tower and buildings far back from the bluff. Through countless tide cycles, destructive nor'easters, and hurricanes, nature has removed massive amounts of soil from around the lighthouse. The erosion went unchecked until the bluff was perilously close to the lighthouse. In 1946, the Army Corps of Engineers installed a stone revetment at the base of the bluff. This slowed the erosion for a time, but didn't stop it. By 1967, the Coast Guard decided it was more cost-effective to abandon the lighthouse and erect a steel tower with a light further back from the bluff, rather than try and stop the erosion. Resolve to save the lighthouse came from the most unlikely of places, a 61-year-old woman. Georgina Reed made it her personal mission to save the lighthouse by planting reeds on the bluff. Working alone or with a group of loyal helpers, countless hours were spent terracing and planting the bluff. The efforts paid off, and soon it was clear to the Coast Guard that the lighthouse could be saved. What followed was a rare and impressive collaboration of federal and state agencies with private citizens to fund and build a massive two-tier stone revetment. The lighthouse is secure for now, but erosion control is an ongoing effort and concern. Dusk to dawn. Summer to winter. Through the ages, Montauk Point Lighthouse stands silent vigil. It has provided us with hope, security, and direction through the seasons of time. Drawn to its silent majesty, today's visitors are the new keepers of the light, preserving and sharing its proud history. Montauk Point Lighthouse truly is America's lighthouse.